you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm a bit of a tired old soul today. I don't know about you, but I think this isolation, because I'm doing less. I'm tired, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Because the days when I'm busier tend to be the days when I'm more awake because I'm sort of alert. Whereas the days when I don't do much, I get tired so quickly.
I sat down yesterday and I put on the Ben Stokes innings. And
Yeah.
My intention was not to sit there all day and watch it, and I watched every single ball. Every single. I was just mesmerised. Got my wife, sat her down, and just said, "This is modern day greatness."
You can almost like, I'm the same. I could sit and watch that over and over again. I could watch it on repeat because it's just so iconic. We're giving away what time we're doing the podcast as well by saying morning. People could be like, hopefully you guys are watching it in the morning as well, so it makes sense. If you watch it in the afternoon and we're like, good morning, you go, what these boys like?
Good evening, or maybe you just got up and you can't sleep because you've got a new baby. Well, congratulations, and hopefully you can get some shut eye. We'll cover all base.
Absolutely. Our soothing, dulcet tones will get you through this tough period of having to look after the children.
I don't think my squeaky, annoying voice has ever been known as dulcet tones, but I'll take it.
Well, you called me uncle out of Only Fools and Horses, so you've got Squeaky Buzz and Cockney Dave.
I think there's a sitcom out of this podcast, isn't there?
Don't give us that idea.
It was interesting watching the innings again because obviously you knew the ending. It was like watching a film. You were looking out for other things that you kind of forget. And you know, like I forgot that Warner dropped him at slip. Like it was a half a chance, but it was a genuine chance. You know what I mean? And it was things like that. And then there was the player misses that we saw, and there was just so many different little intricate details that, that after the run out there was so much hesitance within his running, and I loved looking at that sort of thing and looking at that from a coaching standpoint more than anything.
Yeah.
But either way, the ending was the exact same as what we always want it to be.
Absolutely, and we'll get into it more, but welcome back, guys, to the Boundary2Boundary Podcast with myself and Buzz. Today we're going to be loosely discussing, because you know how we are, we start on a topic, we have a conversation, we go away on a tangent, and in an hour's time we wrap it up. So the plan today is to touch on the evolution of cricket, and I think there's no better place, Buzz, like you say, to start with that Ben Stokes innings of last year at Headingley, because one, it's fresh in your mind having watched it yesterday. I think it's fresh in everyone's minds that likes cricket. I think on the topic of what you said there, I think it's easy to forget little things that happen in it because your mind's drawn to the last final moment, and my memory of that it is probably the last 10 minutes of his innings. But there's the beauty of it is it was constructed over such a long period of time.
I mean, when you look at that one innings and you think about how cricket is developed and how cricket has changed, he played what you would call an authentic test innings the day before, the evening before, kind of in a survival mode with Root, and he just kind of batted everything away. And I think he was 2 off maybe 40 balls, 50 balls even, right?
Yeah.
He then comes out the next day, batting like an absolute jet, but still in that authentic test mode.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So, striking at 50%, hitting in maybe 2 areas. He literally, anything short, he put away. And then it was only until the wicket started to fall the other end where you could see his mindset shift from test player into one-day player into 2020 mode. And there was these calculated risks that they wouldn't, that not only the shot selection, the execution that we're not going to talk about because I think execution has been out through the entire game, but the shot selection would not have been the same 15 years ago. And it just shows you how even that aspect of the game has changed and evolved, because the reverse sweep off Nathan Lyon. Now, yes, it's an amazing shot, and as a spectacle, everyone will look at that shot and go, this is amazing. But it was more of the statement that, Stokes put down saying, I can hit you wherever I want if I need to.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you just felt like the whole crowd were like, oh my God, this guy's Superman. He can do this.
Yeah,
and
it was like that massive shift that the Aussies are so reliant on Nathan Lyon on day 5 of a Test match to bowl teams out, and it was we talk about the mental side of the game and the advantage you can get from winning the mental battles, and when Stokes did that to Lyon, it made the Aussies turn around and go, shit.
Yeah.
Like this is our guy. This is our guy that we so reliable for us. Has done it for so long. Has caused so many problems. And this guy has just, like you say, he's shown him that he's not invincible. He can hit him anywhere. But I feel like it was like we talk about in coaching we talk about going through the gears and approaching innings in certain ways. I think that's a completely example of it on a completely different level to what most players will ever experience. You won't have to bat for 2 off 60 balls. You might do in some conditions. And actually, this is where it's so fascinating, because the process that he went about it was gear 1, which was just block, defend, judgment, get your eye in, to then pushing yourself into gear 2, where he then starts to look ones and getting a few runs on the board as well, to gear 3, when he's looking to try and be slightly more positive in that morning of the last day. And then you've got gear 4, which is when, like you say, you took the calculated risks. And then gear 5, when he was just he was in such a zone focus that he didn't even take calculated risks by the end. He was just backing his eye and going with it.
But the over, he hit Hazelwood, who I think at the moment is one of the best bowlers in world cricket.
Absolutely.
He hit for 19. And the shot that I want to really pick out was it was like the check sweep that he played off him for that low full toss. Now, when you're in the mindset that, okay, this is the bowler that I want to attack, and I think that no one really, there's no secret there. You know, batters have plans and teams have plans, and if you're going to look to get after one specific bowler, you know, he's gone right in this attack. It's going to be Hazelwood.
Yeah.
Now, Hazelwood's bowling a specific length, so he's looking to get underneath the ball. He then goes for the Yorker. He's got the control and the composure to get low on the ball, just trust his timing.
Yeah.
And then kind of, like I say, like a check sweep for 6 over square leg. I mean, that in itself just shows the control of that. That's not slogging. That's not power hitting. That is just backing your ability and your ball striking to clear 70 meters.
Yeah.
Now, again, when we talk about the evolution, and this is what this episode is all about, the evolution of cricket. I want to say, obviously, his technique and his timing and his training and everything that goes into that. There's no way you took a GM bat from 2000, year 2000, let alone a GM bat from 1985. There's no way you're playing that shot without the technology that is evolved with the game, because that cricket bat is going to help him. I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm not saying that by any means, but I'm saying that cricket bat, could you do that with a bat that was made in the 80s and 90s? I don't think you could.
No, I agree. But having said that, the beauty of the shot that he's played, it's a pickup shot that's just all about timing. Oh. And I think potentially you may not get the distance that you've got, but in terms of the actual execution of the shot, I still think you could, regardless of what bat you're using, you could still have effect with it. But maybe that's the difference between the extra sort of 5 yards, and that's one thing that players nowadays, like you say, getting onto the topic of the evolution of cricket, it's the confidence that people have to be able to clear the boundary, and it's with ease because of, like you say, the development in bats, the fact that bats are made to such a bigger, like the different specs now, the bats so much bigger, and the middles are huge on them. Like professional bats, you probably got the middles about that long, which is, and the amount of times you hear commentators say he's not got that, he's towed that, and this is where potentially it comes down to the strength and conditioning as well, because I think when we talk about evolution of the game, it breaks down into many different facets, and I think the main thing is the difference in strength of a lot of the players now, and the fact that most batters are put on strength programs anyway. So even your touch batsmen, the likes of your Kane Williamsons, your Virat Kohlis, they've still got that strength because they have designated S&C programs. And I think maybe the biggest evolution of cricket, you could argue, is what's gone on outside of what you see on a game day, and actually the growth in the technology behind the idea of nutrition, strength and conditioning, sports psychology is so prevalent now.
But there's no secret that the game's changed since watching the likes of both of them sat at the top of Lords drinking a can of beer, Shane Warne having a fag. Those things, of course, they still go on. But I just think that I think there's so much more of a financial reward and maybe takeaway in terms of cricket now, that the professionalism had to step up. The IPL, and I shouldn't just say the IPL, but the shorter formats. But let's be honest, the IPL, what they've done, they've given an outlet for players to make their money and still be successful in in international cricket. So that sort of thing, you can't be seen to be an unprofessional, untrained, unfit athlete anymore. You've got the Bothams and the Viv Richards and the players of that generation, the unbelievable talents. But if you put them in modern day, they would not have been able to get away with the things they got away with.
Oh, no way.
And the reality is, would they still be able to have done what they have done with the analytical side of things that the game is now created with? Sports analysis, just finding out people's weaknesses and talking about plans, and just looking at that series of the Test about how they got a mathematician in, and they focused on lengths and how they're going to be doing this, and they would identify specific batters and lines to bowl. I don't know how much of that went on back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but whatever it went on, it couldn't have been to the level of what's going on today. Which
no, not the same level of exposure, nowhere near.
Exactly. So that change in its own right, it's a completely different game. Look at the different deliveries that have been created over the last 10 years because of shorter format cricket.
Yeah, and I agree. And this is a very interesting debate of comparing players from the older generations with players from the modern day. So that when you compare the likes of an Ian Botham and a Ben Stokes, because there's arguments for both. Like, obviously, the way the game's progressed now has led towards like you say, we call it the evolution of cricket, but it's always changing, it's always developing and progressing forward. The scores are bigger, the shots are bigger, the people are bowling faster, the catches are more athletic. But even someone like a Botham, you've got to question whether, if he did play in this generation with all this available to him, how good could he have been? Could he have potentially, and could these players have even potentially been better? Yeah. And it's a case of, it's easy for us, and I've been guilty of it before, of sort of sitting and having a lot of recency bias, where I'll go, well, obviously no one's better than so and so now because they get found out from all this technology, they get reviewed, like they have to go up against all this sort of stuff. But actually, you think back and you think there was a time when people were batting against that West Indian attack without wearing a helmet, and you think that's mental to think. Imagine what you could do now with those players if they were like.
Well, the biggest thing that kind of changed it for me when I look at and like you're saying, recency biases, the pitches that these guys used to play on and used to bat on. I mean, with all the technology in terms of the performance of the player, just think of all the technology that's happening in just developing the best wickets in the world, and the covers and radars and things like that. These guys are going into bat on absolute wet ones, smoking the ball out the ground. I mean, it's quite incredible. But I think it's just what you're used to as well. When you've grown up and you're used to playing on a green top, it's that feeling of, okay, that's what we're going on. If you take a modern day cricketer, you take a teenager and you take them to more of a rural ground that's a little bit wet, it's a little bit green. The first thing they're going to say is, "Oh, I'm not scoring any runs today. It's an absolute pudding. This is a rubbish wicket." Yeah. It's amazing how the mindset completely changes when you've got someone that's maybe a wily old fox who just turns up and knows his game a little bit. You can say, actually, this is fine. This is going to play fine. Might skid a little bit. Odd one might stay low, but we'll be fine.
Well, that's something that's quite interesting, because in terms of taking it back to coaching now, and when I'm training, one of the things I've tried to implement in some of my training programs is a balance with players between facing a sidearm at 75, 80, 85 mile an hour to facing a sidearm at 65, because it's incredible what you'll see all these lads indoors and all these girls indoors smoking and bang out the middle, bang, easy. coming onto the bat nicely. Get outdoors, first one on the green top. I remember my experience with Kent last year with the Kent women's side. We had a pre-season friendly against Surrey. And it wasn't a bad pitch, but it was slightly soft, pretty normal pitch for April, May time. And I just remember sitting there going, we've got a jet side, we've got a couple of England players in there, and we were 10 for 3 because I had this wily little seamer running in, nicked it a little bit off the seam, hit a horrible length, and we just couldn't score. So I think in terms of that, it's about training methods have changed, and everyone's got these aspirations to face to bat. Oh, I want to be facing genuine pace. I want to be facing this. I want to be doing this. But actually, maybe we're a bit lazy in our coaching on the topic of evolution, in the sense that
this is what you said. The biggest, like the evolution of just using the sidearm.
Yeah,
that sidearm is a fantastic tool, but I think what people forget and what coaches forget, it is a tool. Same as a bowling machine. People call. I get really frustrated now when I see people on a bowling machine, and someone will say, "Oh, that's just a lazy way of coaching." Well, no, it's a tool. If used correctly, this sort of, it's fantastic. Colin Monroe, for example, I found out the other day, he only practices on a bowling machine. He does not face a bowler. So you've got one of the best 2020 players in modern cricket currently refuses to face a bowler when he's training. When he's in a training environment, he says, "No, I'm just going to have a bowling machine." I think that is that has to contradict so many people's thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, but and I can see why though, because obviously why he would do that, because in terms of what is the purpose of a training for a player? It's to fill them with the confidence ready to go out and execute their skills in a match environment. That is the purpose of training for that level anyway. Like, everyone assumes that training we need to work on something, develop something, make something better. A lot of the time for players, it's about maintaining. It's just as important as developing. And at least with a bowling machine, Colin Monroe has his measures of success because he understands what he's doing well. Because if he's consistent with that, he'll know when he's had a good net and had a bad net. And I guess the thing about facing bowlers is that I think it's a shift, and I also think it's an evolution in cricket of a shift in mindset. That someone like Colin Monroe would be like, right, if I'm batting my best, no one in the world can bowl at me, and that's almost symptomatic of a bowling machine, because he'll think, right, if I'm in a good place, if I'm batting as well as I can be, which again can be quantified by just hitting the bowling machine balls consistently and well, and I'm batting with confidence, I don't need to face any bowlers in training because I know that whoever runs in and bowls at me is going to go to the fence.
Yeah.
So but that's another shift in the evolution of cricket, in that people's training methods. We're now in a time where people are sitting there going, what's best for me? How do I learn best? As coaches, we're trying to prompt people to think, what do you best respond to? Do you prefer facing bowlers? Do you prefer facing bowling machine? Do you prefer facing sidearm? And I think that's maybe where it's different, because we have all these technologies available to us now.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity, the freedom of choice.
It's also, that choice element, though. I think that's another shift, and that's another change, and it's especially coming into the game in the last, 5 to 10 years. I don't remember when I was growing up being trained to play, given a choice. It was, I've touched upon this before. I think either on this or on the lives, I was told what to do. I was told this is a right way of doing things. This is the wrong way of doing things. I remember in one training session, I would have been maybe 14, 15. I remember a coach coming in with a textbook, a literal textbook, going, right, this is what. So that's 2004, 2005. So this isn't, Stone Age. This is probably around the greatest test series ever, which is another thing that I want to talk about because that changed everything.
Yeah.
But they brought a textbook in going, right, okay, so point number one, this is how you play this shot, and this is what you're not doing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get over how, it wasn't a one-to-one basis. It was a group of players going, right, okay, that's where your elbow should be. And well, that would never happen in this day and age. That would never happen now. I would, on a coaching standpoint, ever talk to 5 people about one specific flaw, unless, okay, if they're all doing it, then maybe, but I just think there's an individualism within cricket now, and I think that is termed from players such as KP from 2005.
Yeah.
Now,
one of the biggest arguments against, just before we move on to that Ashes Test match, because I think it'd be a good point to carry on to, is a lot of coaches now being accused of being lazy, in the sense that because we're not going by the book anymore, because there is no framework to how players should be coached, and no metric of progress, almost like you're sort of into it with each player. It's a lot more individual.
But coaching isn't teaching. This is what I say this all the time. Coaching isn't teaching. We don't have a tick box of we've got to do this in this order for your son or your daughter to get a B. Do you know what I mean? Like, coaching is such a, it is almost, and there's a great line that the head coach at Exeter University uses, and he basically says, as a coach, his job is to open up a buffet, and he's got a load of different things. And as the player, he wants you to come and try different things to find what's right for you. And I just, I jumped on that kind of thought process of how you coach. And I think that's the only way to get the best out of people, by giving them the options and giving them the opportunity to try varied approaches of training.
Exactly, I completely agree, and that's actually something I couldn't agree more. I like the thought process and the saying of coaching isn't teaching, because, like you say, there's so many. To be a good coach, you need to understand the player, so you need that level of individualism about the training, because actually you're not going to respond to every coach. Some coaches just naturally, you could be the best coach in the world, but your training methods may not be for some player. So it's about creating an environment where players respond to you and you respond to them, and you bounce off each other, and it's constant learning. But sort of developing on that point, I think the likes of Muralithran, the likes of Malinga, the likes of Shandapal, they have dragged us in, and KP, they've dragged us into this generation where we have to look at our coaching methods, because actually the most successful cricketers of the last 5-10 years aren't your textbook cricketers. So that's the players like that we should be credited with beginning the shift into the game as we know it. I'd like to move on now, like you say, to arguably the first massive. Obviously, we've had little examples of evolution through individual players, like just cited some of them there. And there was a few things. You got the Kerry Packer series. I won't get into that too much, but that was the beginning of cricket being commercialised, the beginning of cricket being
colour kit, white ball.
Absolutely. It sort of bites. That was the start of the franchises almost. Yeah. Then you've got moments that stand out. I mean, we'll do a video on iconic moments later on anyway. But would you say that for you the biggest shift from an evolution standpoint was that 2005 Ashes series?
It has to be, and there's so many reasons why. First and foremost, Graham Thorpe got dropped for KP. Now, so many people forget that. Many people forget that. And he was
glazed over.
Oh, mate, completely. And the fact was, if KP wasn't as successful as he was, it would have been a huge story that England had dropped their. I think he just played 100 tests as well.
Yeah.
So you come in and then you drop the one of the most recognised names. Granted, it's coming to the end of his career, but still not at the end of his career.
Yeah.
You drop him for this young, bolshy, South African-born batter with oodles of talent, but clearly with a big blonde stripe down his head. Got a bit about him. Yeah, he's got a bit about him in terms of his ego and his swagger. And it turns out to be probably the most influential thing, and it's like that one player within an England setup changed everything.
And it's interesting because that was almost, again, a seismic shift from with Thorpe. You had that reliability, that experience, someone who you knew if you picked him, he wouldn't let you down. But you've got this new breed, this new age of cricketer in KP who's got all this potential. And actually, it was his performances in the white ball game which got him that test call up.
And that's another evolution thing that you can actually look at. Jason Roy in modern cricket. He had a great World Cup.
Butler.
Yeah, Josh. Yeah. So they go, okay, well, if you can do it at that standard, we're going to throw you into the test. How often are we watching players play test cricket? Well, we as fans, or as amateur pundits, some would say now, because everyone's got an opinion with social media, that you kind of know deep down he's never ready for that level. Yet now it's actually the evolution. Again, it's like, do you know what? He's on fire. The boy's scoring runs in any format. Let's get him. Let's throw him in. And I think that goes back to KP. That goes back to the Flintoff. That goes back to that series of how it all started about.
Yeah, and in terms of the fact that you had the middle order for England were all shot makers during that period, which was probably something pretty unheard of at the time, because you think Bell grew into being a shot maker, KP, Flintoff. These are all guys that they're not, Geraint Jones, they're not going to go in there and dig in and be there after 2 days. These are guys that are going to go in and play a certain brand of cricket in a certain way. And actually that was England's tonic to try and counter what the Aussies were. And I think it, obviously, when you've got Trescothick and Strauss at the top of the order and you've got Vaughan at 3, you've got a solid start and a solid base to build on. But I think that was potentially the shift in terms of the culture, that Test match cricket isn't about picking your 11 or your 5-6 best batters who can bat long period of time. It's about having a complete balance to your Test side, and that balance now includes people who have the ability to counter punch.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because now you look at most Test sides around the world, and they will have a batsman or 2-3 batsmen in a role that can do that. I mean, the Aussies had Gilchrist anyway.
Well, they had Hayden at the top of the order. They had that big, almost like gorilla, stood there and just could be as dominant as he wanted, but then had the capability of going for long periods of time. You had Justin Langer, who was just that kind of, in the nicest way, it's like a cockroach. You just can't get rid of him. He's just there, and unbelievable testament to working within his game and just mental strength and just physical toughness. It's fantastic. And then you've got Ricky Ponting, who, like you're saying, just a freak. But again, these two teams going head to head, you've said it beautifully. England had to change something to try and counteract, this kind of star-studded lineup. And I think also people forget at the time, this was the time, 2005, this is where England finally got back on top of, after such a dismal period of time where Australia just battered England again and again and again. And because of that, it's then changed on and on and on and on and on. 400 in a day was unheard of when England did it in 2005. And now we kind of like shrugged that off. It's almost like the Indian side of things with Bollywood. India have always had this kind of almost like a religion around cricket. Right? And I think it was only until 2005 that the rest of the world started to catch them up to see how cricket can not only just be that gentleman's game, but it's a sport and it's alive,
Yeah, absolutely agree. And like I say, that I think the uniqueness about that 2005 Ashes series, in terms of from an evolution standpoint and how it brought the game forward, was it was a first time for so many things, and it put cricket into, as it almost became like rather than a game, it almost became like a story. And it was I mean, there's probably countless tests before it, and guys, I really apologise because my knowledge of cricket pre that probably isn't up to where it should be. But in terms of from a where the game led to off the back of that Test series, it was like a springboard. But then you look from arguably from that series onward, and the next big thing in terms of an evolution was the emergence of T20 cricket. And then I would say probably from that standpoint, you then had the franchise competition starting. Actually, the first franchise competition was 2007, I think it was, with the T20 Blast. And I think England missed a trick. Having seen how the game has gone on to grow with these franchise competitions around the world, England missed a trick by not franchising from the start.
Yeah, but I think the reality is people forget that T20 cricket was again born in England. So it was a concept, from the ECB. And you're completely right. They didn't do that, and because I think it's a cultural thing, and it falls back into why India are so successful and they're so good. Because when they do something, they do it big. You know what I mean?
They believe in it.
Coloured kit, gold. This is like gold helmets. Now, you would never in England wear a gold helmet, never. Even to this day.
Well, you are. We are going to with the 100.
Well, okay, but it's taken to 2020.
Yeah.
It's taken, but before we would even consider wearing a gold helmet. When you saw Alex Stewart and Gucci wearing a white helmet, people wouldn't wear a white helmet now. And if they did, if someone walked out to the crease with a white helmet, if we were playing cricket tomorrow, they would get absolute pelters.
Yeah.
Whereas in India, it is big, it is brash, it is proud, it is a spectacle. And the IPL to me has basically changed the whole scope of what cricket is now, and that is almost seen as the mecca of where shorter format players want to be, because it's it's that financial reward, but also it's why wouldn't you want to have your name in lights?
Yeah, it's the landscape around the whole game has changed, and I think it was the 2005 Ashes series was a lot of people's first experiences of cricket, especially in England, and I think it was because we got such a new audience in because of the drama that we had around that series, and how much people started to look at cricket as through likes of KP, that they look at it in a way that was like, God, this is quite enjoyable to watch it. And that was probably what started the beginning of thinking, right, how do we retain this many players? How do we, this many fans, sorry, how do we convert these one-off watchers into more consistent viewership? So I think that was the scope, and that was a springboard for the introduction of the T20 game and the pushing, the financial support behind that. I think you look at this, and again, we're using, it takes, I think we look at an evolution as something that what happens as a result of that. And I think you look at the World Cup last year, and you look at the year we had, the summer we had last year, as springboarded the 100 this year. I know the plans were probably in place previous to that, but it gave the ECB the incentive to get that out because we've got this whole new audience, because we put TV back onto the mainstream networks. We've now got this brand new audience that we can give this new experience of cricket to. So in terms of evolution, you're looking at big events that happen that prompt a change after that.
And evolution, it comes from when maybe at the time the strongest survive.
Yeah.
There are going to be teams, and there are going to be clubs around the world that have jacked up, packed in, especially at an amateur level, because the game's evolving. Because the stereotypes of what cricket the village cricket, Sunday league cricket, doesn't exist anymore. Especially down in my area, does not exist. Midweek friendlies, touring teams. People aren't interested to drive around and play a full day. They want the excitement. They want that quick, because we're looking at a completely different generation and a different culture. Yeah. And unfortunately, every sport needs to change with the people that want to play on it, because at the end of the day, your sport can be as big as you want to be, but if no one's playing it, no one cares. So you've got kind of scope for the what I call the TikTok generation, where people want it. They want everything short, sharp, and they want it to be fun. So what's more? T10 will be. I think there'll be a T10 World Cup.
I disagree.
In years to come, mate. In years to come, there'll at least be a T10 tournament.
I can't see it happening, because I feel like even now the T20 suits everyone's needs, because as much as people like small bite-sized content to watch, I feel like the fact remains that most people that are genuine cricket fans will see that in T20.
Oh yeah,
I can't see.
I don't disagree, but I'm telling you now, with everything is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And then you go down to what that Super Over with the World Cup and how exciting that is. Someone's going to go. There's already T10 competitions around the world. Someone's going to put the idea forward. Let's go for a T10 ICC competition.
Yeah, it could potentially happen.
Get it over and done with within 2 weeks. It could potentially. But again, this is how the game's changed completely changed. And I love the fact when people still are so naive to think that it's just a gentleman's game with cucumber sandwiches at halftime. Like it's crazy.
Well, exactly. And I think it's the evolution comes in people's mindsets that are outside of cricket now. Like people that are outside that before had said, oh, so it's 5-day game. It goes on forever. It's one of those boring things and it's the word, everyone comes back to boring. It's boring. There's too much. It takes too long. And even now, people's perception of the game totally changed. And I think it's taken a few pioneers to do that. Obviously, I can only speak for the mentality and the culture in this country. And we are a football country. We are a football nation. And I think your football fan viewership is now invested in some capacity in cricket. And I think that's a success that we look at evolution as we look at the T20 and cricketing purists look at it in a way that goes, oh, well, it's killing Test cricket. It's everything's wrong with the game.
Look at the Barmy Army. Look at the Barmy Army. They're purists. That that they are watching the longest format, the hardest form of cricket, and they are an absolute. If you walk past a cricket ground when the Barmy Army are on full song, you'd think they're hooligans. Would you not?
Well, I've got a different perspective from the Barmy Army. In that, to me, they are nothing to do with the cricket. They are not cricketing purists. On the fact that they've created this whole image around cricket, and they've actually used it as a. I mean, you look at what they do. They obviously love cricket, but I wouldn't call them cricketing purists because they absorb the content, but it's about them. They're not. I'm talking about your people that will go and sit and watch a game of cricket.
Isn't that what a modern day purist is? Isn't that the shift that we're talking about, the evolution of the person that used to sit there and just sit and go through the scoreboard and just score along with the game and kind of clap every boundary, or is a purist now someone who watches the game and goes, do you know what? Let's get behind these boys because what people want to see. Do you know what I mean? They want the culture. What's his name?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I can see that obviously they do travel around the world's sport in England, but the core of the Barmy Army is a commercialised group that get paid to travel around these places. So could you define a cricketing purist as someone who's paid to do that?
And
then people identify with them.
Maybe this is time for us to say, if there's anyone listening from the Barmy Army or anyone that's involved with the Barmy Army, please get in touch.
We would love to have a conversation and understand how it works a bit more.
Because commenting below or give us an email, and we'd love to have that conversation because I think they would say,
I'd love some tickets.
I think they would say that they are purists, and I think what we've found out here is that Dave doesn't support England and at a Test level. What? What?
Well, I must admit, I've always had an affiliation towards New Zealand. I'm joking, but no, I think you're right. But to me, the cricketing purist will never change in essence of what it is. I think
as much as the game evolves, the purist side of things would necessarily say the same.
Yeah, as soon as you lose the traditional purist that will bring their packed lunch, that will sit, have cups of tea. Or maybe they bring a little hamper, they'll sit with them. Because even then, the purist has changed to being a couple sitting, having a glass of wine, bringing their, I'm trying to think what the word is, packed lunch, whatever, the hampers. But until you lose that demographic of fans that will, I'm talking about the purists, I'm talking about the ones that turn up at Bexley on a Saturday afternoon, sitting in their deck chairs with a scorebook, absorbing what is localised cricket.
Yeah.
Because they love the game and they love being in that environment. They'll go and watch twos cricket. They'll go. That's another question. The international game now has grown to something that is. I can't call the international game for purists anymore because of the fact it's so commercialised. Because your cricket fans, you can't get tickets. You just can't get tickets now. I mean, we will. I like to think. Obviously, being involved with a county and coaching for a while, that I'd be one of the first people that would have the opportunity when it comes up to get tickets. I managed to get one ticket for a 1 day of this Test summer that was meant to be happening. That's all I managed to get this year. And to me, the cricketing purists are the guys that are at county level cricket, sitting for a 4-day game, to me, someone that goes and follows England around the world and soaks in the atmosphere and is in that environment. That to me is a whole different level of different supporter.
And that's what's showing maybe back to what we're talking about and how the game is evolving, that it's not always for the best. But I think again you need the support of everyone to keep a sport growing. and you need it in that limelight, and you need that's why we'll never be able to compete with India, because everyone loves it. It's their number one sport for a reason. They live it, they breathe it, and this is where England and to an extent Australia will never catch them up, because there's other things going on.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? Their resource, their interest. In India, there's only one sport that people get fully behind, and even if there's other sports, cricket's their first sport. In this country, we're the first country to have won the Rugby World Cup, the Football World Cup, and the Cricket World Cup, and this is because there is a realistic expectation on us to succeed or to be in the mix in every international competition. And the downside of that is that you can't grow each sport to the levels of that, like rugby is in New Zealand, that and even now I say New Zealand, but even then they're sort of 50. But the rugby is huge over there. Cricket is to India. That I would even argue something like cricket is to Australia. I think they have similar levels. It's not quite as fanatical, but that's just because the viewership's not, the numbers aren't there.
For me, the next change and the next big jump that's going to happen in cricket will be if the powerhouse of America continue to grow it the way that they're growing it. It is picking up a lot of steam in America at the moment, and just like they're doing in football, just like they've been doing in like rugby sevens, and which will soon be probably turning their form into either league or union. I think America are going to be a big part to play in world cricket in future years.
I disagree, but only on the purpose that it would directly conflict with what baseball stands for and is.
I think America's so big, and I think there's so much money. I think they've got all the potential. They've got the demographic. There are millions of people in America, both born in America, both immigrants going across into America of Asian descent. They will be playing cricket more and more and more. It's growing naturally. Look at so many different countries around the world now playing cricket. Hong Kong playing cricket consistently. Japan playing cricket consistently. All these associate nations. Look, I reckon we could have had this argument maybe 5 years ago against Afghanistan. I bet you wouldn't have said, "Oh, Afghanistan, they would never be around the ICC." Who are Afghanistan in cricket? Well, look at Rashid Khan. Look at Majib.
The differences for me is that Afghanistan can put resource, and I'm not saying America can't, but they're looking for something to get behind as a country, and they put all their eggs in the cricket basket, which means that they can grow it significantly quicker. But look how long it's taken us to get rounders off the curriculum in place of cricket. Cricket wasn't even on the curriculum in England, and it's one of our national sports.
Well,
in America,
this is the scary thing, unfortunately, because of the schooling cutbacks that are consistently happening again. That will be the biggest change, I think, for cricket again, because if we don't train our teachers up to continue to coach, we're going to fall back into that. Sorry to cut you off. That was a really important point.
No, it's fine, and that's a good point that you've made there. But for me, you're looking at it. It's taken us years to get rounders out of people's minds. Rounders has, without being rude to rounders, it has no platform. It has no. You can't. If you're a really good rounders
player,
How
dare you, sir? I'm a fourth generation rounders player. How dare you?
It's got a ceiling. It limits. In America, you will not get cricket ahead of college baseball, and to me.
Of course you won't. Of course,
and it's going to be a minority. I can never see cricket becoming as big in America as people think it will be.
I'm not saying it's going to be big in America. That's the best thing about this argument. I don't think it has to be big in America, because I've got a feeling it can just be big everywhere else. I think America are so big and they're so powerful and they've got so much money. I think they've got the potential to go on the world stage and get involved in it, especially at a shorter format. As this
associate at best.
Yeah, well, but I mean, even that, as soon as they taste it, mate, as soon as they taste that competition and the potential to win, why wouldn't they, the most dominant country in the world that likes to be the biggest and the best at absolutely everything, why wouldn't they want to do it? That's the question.
The point I'll make to that is, look at football. They have set up their own league where money wise, everything goes.
Yeah.
They've had this running for a long period of time already. They haven't made any inroads in the international stage at all. And that is something that's genuinely considered to be probably their fifth sport now in their country, on their countrywide scale. Soccer is in every school. There are soccer franchises, soccer teams.
How long have we been playing football in England? How long have Brazil been playing? These guys have been playing football properly now, what, 50 years? And when it comes into the educational standpoint that you're talking about, probably the last 20 years, taking it seriously for the last 10 years, and we're already talking about them on the world stage. So,
but I'll be talking about it. Would you, if you were going to give a top 30 countries in world football, to me, USA don't get in there.
Yeah,
and what they have,
of course they do. Of course they do. They have to.
Not top 30.
They got to. Right, off camera, because this is a cricket podcast. We're going to be playing this. No, but what the points I'm saying, and I will try and get this back on topic.
Yeah.
The evolution of our sport is branching out past the kind of the stranglehold, I'm going to say, of the original countries playing it. So when we look at cricket, we have always looked at all the, we've got Sri Lanka, we've got India, we've got Pakistan.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it was just the selection of England, Australia, New Zealand. They were, and then South Africa, of course. But these are the names that will consistently come out. Of course, there's other names before people go mental at me, but no longer can we just talk about those countries.
No, and we are growing, and this is going to be better for cricket, because for every Afghanistan, for every Ireland, for every Scotland, for every Bangladesh. I'm done with that topic. But for every team, and Thailand in the women's game, we haven't even mentioned the women's game. We'll get onto that in a minute. But for every team for every country that emerges, it forces other countries to have to put more resource into becoming better, because we are it's a competitive nature in terms of your success. You've seen on a small scale the success that this last summer has had for English cricket. The ECB has been able to invest millions across so many initiatives. The 100 in the women's game, the regional centres that are coming in. You're going to have the Dynamos. You've got All Stars. This has all come off the back of success in some capacity on a global scale. Yeah. So this is why when teams like Afghanistan start putting the name in the mix, and there's an extra team they've got to now compete with, it's creating opportunity. It's creating this model where we have to develop our game. And the Indians are in a position where, because of, like Buzz said, because of such a massive demographic of cricket nuts, of people who live the game, they will never have to make wholesale changes. They don't have to invest. Their national governing body doesn't have to invest downwards, because it's already at a stage where there's hundreds of thousands of millions of people that already do what they need to do to get that opportunity. Yeah. So in countries like this, we need to look at, we're constantly reviewing. And what's interesting is, obviously, we are the number one ODI team in the world.
Yeah.
Represent. But actually, we haven't even scratched the surface in terms of players that we can attract and ways of growing the game. We're still a very small model by comparison to so many other countries. So
definitely. But I think what you touched on, and this is where the biggest evolution comes in, and I think we can both agree with this because we're a part of it. You so more than me. The women's game and how that's changed and how that's picked up over the last 10 years is incredible. We've spoken very passionately about this as well. When there's been a stigma over the women's game about it's boring and there's no pace in it, there's no power in it, there's no tactics in it, it's all one-dimensional. I mean, that is, to me, such a naive concept and such a narrow-minded concept that people don't really register or understand how beautiful and how good that game is. And it is slightly, I call it a different game. It is a different game because the technique and the tactics have to be different because of some people call them limitations, but they're just differences at the end of the day. And that to me, that is the biggest evolution that is continually to grow in this country and within our game.
Oh, absolutely. And there's two events that stick in the mind. You've got the World Cup final win at Lord's 2017, I think it was, where we had virtually a full house at Lord's. which was unheard of for women's cricket. And then you think this year, a couple of months ago, they filled the Gabba. It was 85,000 people at the Gabba, I think it was, for the, or maybe the WAC, I can't remember, for the Women's World Cup final for Australia versus India. And this is a place we're going to with the women's game, where, having been involved in it and been around it, having seen the level these players are at, anyone that says they can't do that, they've got limitations, I can tell you for certain they haven't. The only limiting factors is the fact that we haven't got the physiological factors that the men have. That until someone will bowl 90 mile an hour in a women's game in the future, that's going to happen. Someone will consistently bowl 85 mile an hour. But at the moment, players have had to adapt their games because the pace isn't on the ball. The wickets aren't necessarily so susceptible at most levels to being able to be played on. So this is the question that we have. But I mean, what's great is football and cricket have led a women's sport revolution, and we talk about evolution of sport. The cricket sport is the forefront of trying to push women's in society, more greater involvement for women in terms of to be on a level playing field with men. And I love the fact that sport is what's leading that at the moment.
Oh, that is literally, there's no other way of saying that. You've summed that up absolutely brilliantly. And the point that I would like to make on that is that for those who aren't able to register or see the changes in our game for the positive, yes, there's always going to be some forms of negatives. Of course. There's always going to be some forms of negatives. But if people can't see that cricket is bigger than just what the stereotypes were back in 1980, they're at a detriment to our sport.
Oh, absolutely.
For individual, for smaller programs around the country, for counties and for league structures, if you are not willing to support and put the financial gain into your local women's departments within your counties, if you are not willing to get away with the red ball and bring in white ball and pink balls and coloured kits, all you're doing is, number one, wasting your time, because it will happen. It will happen.
Absolutely, it should.
This is what the people want. But the also side of things is, you're actually going to be causing maybe a blockage of potential talent to stop playing our game. When you look at schools and you think about rounders, you could potentially be opening up a whole thousands upon thousands of girls into cricket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, my mind blows, because everything is all linked. Everything, from the governing bodies within our sport, within education, without a bridge, without a link, we are going to get to a bottleneck, and we are going to kind of plateau. And when you plateau, that's when something big needs to change to get us to the next level. And unfortunately, someone needs to make that jump.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that leaves in a good place in terms of to round up this podcast episode. It's been fascinating talking about the evolution of cricket. I
was not expecting to go onto the tangents of which we were talking about, to be honest with you, but I enjoyed that.
And I feel like there's stuff we potentially haven't even got around to covering yet. And guys, we might consider making these episodes longer, especially around big topics like the evolution of cricket, because there is lots of things we touched upon where we go into in more detail. If you'd like to see us cover it again at a later date, let us know in the comments below, because we'd be happy to carry on talking about it. We will, any engagement from you guys, any questions, any ideas you want to put to us to discuss around the evolution of cricket, because as much as it's been a great focus for us to talk about today, it's, like Buzz says, opened up so many different avenues and made us realise so many different things about the game that we potentially hadn't even prepared for when we first had this conversation about this episode. But no, Buzz, thank you very much for joining me again.
Oh, very good. It's always enjoyable speaking to you, Dave. One day we'll even meet in person.
Well, can you imagine? Leave in the comments, guys, a prediction of how many episodes we would have done before we actually meet in person. And it's going to be a weird one. It's going to be like Gavin and Stacey, where you online date for ages and you're talking for absolute years, and then all of a sudden you meet up and you're like...
I think you might finally appreciate how good looking I am as well, which would be nice.
Well, I can't... You've got me there.
No,
some things can't be hid behind the screen.
There we go. There we go. But no, thank you very much. As always, you can leave comments in below, and the more you interact, the more we can talk about. But until next time, Dave.
Absolutely, cheers. But also, guys, just quickly, I know we don't say it enough. Like, share, subscribe, hit notification bell, just so that you, whenever we do upload, you'll be able to get the podcast episodes. We are going to settle on, especially during this quarantine period, we're going to settle on an upload schedule of Monday, Thursday, Saturday, because it gives everyone a good gap in between. But yeah, thank you very much, Buzz. Have a good week. We'll speak soon.
Cheers and bye.